In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a short length of cordage that can be used in a critical time to help affect your survival without wasting critical resources like your time and energy. So hang around. Hey y'all, welcome to Bushcraft Wednesday. I'm Gray Madden from Self-Reliance Publishing, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a technique for making a down and dirty kind of quick primitive cordage. This cordage is not going to be long. It's not using a reverse wrap cordage. It's going to be only as long as the natural fiber is itself. What I'm using here today is this stalk of milkweed that's about 3.5, 4 feet long, something like that. And so that's the length of the cordage that we're going to have, just the length of this fiber. You can use other similar things like dog's bane or other similar plants, really any sort of material that makes a good natural cordage. You're going to be limited to the length of your cordage because there's going to be no splicing, but there's a lot of things that you can do with cordage that is this length that can be used to help affect your survival in a critical situation. You can use a short length of cordage to lash things together to make a shelter, which is a priority in a survival situation. You could use a cordage to make a bow drill fire set to create fire, keep yourself warm, purify water, cook food, which is also a survival priority. So there's many times that you need cordage and you only need a short length of cordage. And in situations like that, it may not make sense to put forth a whole lot of time and effort doing a reverse wrap cordage if it's not required for that situation. In a survival situation or any kind of subsistence living sort of scenario, it's important to conserve your resources and to make do with what you got, not to overdo things. So if you don't need a long piece of cordage, or if you don't need the cordage to be especially strong, then putting in the effort, the extra time and effort necessary to do a reverse wrap cordage may just be a waste. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make just a really quick down and dirty type of cordage that you could use in a survival situation when things are down to the wire and you need something. You could also use this in just an ordinary situation. Say you're out camping and you need a short length of cordage for something, but you'd rather not cut off a couple feet of your bank line or paracord that you carry in your kit. You could practice your skills and make a cordage like this right here to lash whatever you need to lash or do whatever you need to do and still conserve that paracord that you have in your kit. So with that said, let's go ahead, jump in and get started. Like I said, what I have right here is a milkweed stalk. This is a very similar plant to dogbane. These make pretty decent cordage. Ideally, you would harvest it sometime in the fall after it's gone dormant and it's dried out. It's easier to work with. It's not the fall right now, so I'm working with what I got, which is essentially what was a live plant that I cut today. So ideally, you would want to let this dry out before you work with it, but in a survival situation, that may not be practical. So I wanted to show you that you can work with this and create a usable product even with this green material the way it is right now. The thing about using it green and wet is that as it dries, it's going to shrink. So any lashings that you make with this will become loose over a couple of days. So you'd have to come back and retighten it. That's just something to keep in mind. But anyways, how you're going to process this is simply squeeze the stalk, which is going to cause it to split into 4 pieces. And you're going to do this all the way down the stalk. And we'll go ahead and kind of flatten this out. The tendency is for it to split into 4 separate pieces when you squeeze it in half like that. So we're just going to kind of separate those right now. Okay, so now I've got these individual quarters here, and there's a kind of a white pithy substance that's in here, and we're going to want to scrape that away. This outer green layer is also not necessary. It's not going to hurt anything really by being in there, but it doesn't contribute much to the strength of the cordage and adds to the bulk. So if you want to strip that away and get rid of it, that's perfectly fine. If you want to leave it, you can do that too, as long as the extra thickness in the cordage is not going to be a deal breaker in your scenario. Just use my thumb now to scrape out this pith. This is an easier process when it's dry too. When it's dry, it just kind of cracks out, pops out in large chunks. So it's overall easier to work with. I'm just using my thumbnail to scrape this out. If you have a knife, you could use that, or pick up a rock or something, or maybe even a stick to help facilitate this process. But I'm just using my thumbnail here. I could use my knife, but I want to show you that it's possible to make this without using any tools. We can start crushing this up and form smaller strands of this fiber that remains. This is an easier process when you're working with dry material, but in a survival situation, you can't be choosy. So at this point in time, I've got 4 lengths of semi-pliable, semi-strong cordage of sorts that can be used to lash something together to construct a shelter or something else that is useful to you. And just pick up one of these here to demonstrate to you. Just one of the quarters that we got from that stock. And I got 2 sticks here. Show you that it actually is viable for something. Do a quick little lashing in here. Tying a clove hitch to get started like normal. And do a quick lashing. Okay, and there it is. So certainly not the best material to work with, but it is viable and it is usable to a certain extent. If we had dried material here, if you had the ability to lay it out and dry for a couple of days, or if you were working with material that was left over from last year or after it had gone dormant in the fall and was already dried out, you could make a bow drill set out of this cordage just fine. So it all really depends on what you need it for and what you're working with. But the point I wanted to get across with this video is to conserve your resources, and time and energy in a survival situation is critical. So you need to assess your situation, find out what you need to accomplish, what your priorities are, and what you need to do to accomplish all of the things that you need to do. And more than likely, cordage is going to be at the top of your list. That's one of the many reasons it is on Dave Canterbury's 5 C's of Survival, because it is so critical to your survival. And it is relatively difficult and time intensive to make in the woods. But if you ever find yourself in a survival situation where you do need cordage, you might get by with a down and dirty cordage like this right here. I'm not sure you could even really call that cordage, but you might be able to get by with something like that to do a quick little lashing to construct a shelter, or maybe use it for a bow drill set to accomplish some of those things that you need to survive. In future videos over the next few weeks, I'm going to show you a couple of techniques to make reverse wrap cordage that is a actual legitimate primitive type of cordage that could be used for any number of things: bowstrings, making a sling, if you needed a longer length of cordage, or something that's stronger, you could use it for snares. If you made it small enough, potentially fishing line, making fish traps, stuff of that nature. In future videos, I'm going to be showing you 2 different techniques for making a better cordage, but I wanted to point out that there may be situations that don't call for it. So if you're in a critical time and the extra time and effort is not needed to do the reverse wrap, you might be better off just using a longer length of natural fiber that you can use as cordage as is. Hopefully you got something out of that video. As always, I appreciate every like, every comment, and every subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.